Today, at the request of one of my subscribers, I'm going to do a Draw My Life video. I was born on July 7th, 1986. I lived in a teeny tiny little apartment in Whittier with my older sister. When I was a baby, I hated having my picture taken. All of my baby pictures are of me either crying or hiding. Conversely, all my sister's baby pictures have her giving a humongous grin. When I was 18 months old, my family moved from Whittier to a little tiny town called Adelanto because our rent went up $200 in 1 month. That was back in the 80s. My earliest memory is of sitting in a car seat next to my mom with a huge moving van in front of us. Not long after moving to the desert, my baby brother was born. I absolutely adored him. I thought he was the cutest baby on the planet. Until he started walking. Then he was a royal pain. Not long afterward, we got our first dog, which was a long-haired dachshund named Sam. He kind of had issues, but he tried. When I was 3, I saw Star Wars for the first time ever. I didn't really understand it. All I knew was I really liked it. In fact, that Thanksgiving, when we had a family reunion at Disneyland, I saw the Star Trader for the first time, found out I wasn't tall enough for Star Tours, and got jealous of all my cousins that got to ride it. When my dad described it, I was determined to ride Star Tours someday. We never bought the Star Wars movies because my mom didn't like them and we couldn't really afford to buy extra tapes. But we did rent them any chance we got. I tried playing Star Wars with my sister. I was always Luke Skywalker and she was Leia, but the games didn't last for more than 5 minutes. Maybe she thought I was a little weird. Actually, everyone thought I was weird. All the little girls I ever met and some of the little boys teased me because I was the only girl they knew of that liked Star Wars. It would be years before I found out they were wrong. Soon we got new managers for the apartments, and that's when things started getting bad. We had infestations of ants, roaches, all kinds of nasty bugs. Then the airbase closed and the community really started going downhill. When I was 7 years old, we moved into a house with a huge backyard. I absolutely loved that house. It had a great big tree out back and some really fun closets. And best of all, we got a swing set. Then, later that same year, I got to fly in an airplane for the first time and went to another state. That was Washington. We visited my grandpa, who lived outside Mount Rainier, and got to see a whole bunch of different things. It was a really neat experience for me, someone who'd grown up in the desert, seeing all that green for the first time. I felt kind of like Ray when she flies to Takodana. I didn't know there was that much green in the whole galaxy. By this time, you're probably wondering about school. Well, me and my sister and my brother were all homeschooled from kindergarten through high school. My older sister didn't like it, and my brother went to public school for a little while. But I never did. You might be wondering, so how did we socialize with other people? Were we completely isolated? No. The homeschool we were a part of had these group meetings 3 or 4 times a week. We'd take state tests to keep up with everybody else, and we also went on group field trips. And since my family is Christian, we went to Sunday school every week. Even there, I was super shy. I never had any other friends because I liked Star Wars. My only friends growing up were pets. We had lots of pets when I was growing up. In addition to Sam, we had a cat named Charcoal. Unfortunately, when he was still a kitten, he got hit by a car. When we moved out of our first house to a housing tract, I got another cat named Figaro. He was a silver tabby, and I think that animal thought he was a dog. Seriously, he followed us all over the neighborhood one day. But he was really sweet. Unfortunately, the neighbors at our new house weren't so nice. Our next door snob called the cops just because we were homeschooled. The girl across the street pretended to be our friend and then betrayed us. It was so bad, people were literally cheering in the streets the day we moved out. No, I'm serious. Granted, it was all kids, but that just shows how unpopular we really were. But it wasn't all bad. It was there I experienced my first real snowfall, a freak storm of 6 inches, and I learned how to roller skate. The next house we lived in was a block away from the library, and our cat made friends with the firefighters behind us. You might be wondering why we were moving so much. Well, the truth is, my dad was in welding. Unfortunately, the company he was with couldn't pay very much, and it couldn't keep up with the cost of living, which just kept going up. We weren't really allowed to use the word poor, although that's pretty much what we were. We danced the line of poverty my whole life. Our church regularly sent over food and used clothes. One week, I remember we had nothing in the house to eat but corn tortillas, mustard, and peanut butter. That was pretty rough. Then my parents bought their first house. We ended up living there for 7 years. Then, 1997 is when Star Wars Special Editions came out. We couldn't afford to see all of them in the theater, so we went and saw one, The Empire Strikes Back. It totally changed my life. I was a mild Star Wars fan before that. After that, I was more hardcore than ever. During my teenage years, a lot of good and bad stuff happened. The prequels started coming out in theaters. Grandma lived with us for a short time, which was stressful. The cat ran away. The house threatened foreclosure. We filed bankruptcy, sold the house, and moved to a different city. And then there was a whole bunch of personal stuff that I can't get into, but it led to years of insanity, including court battles, fights, tons of heartbreak, and stress. I graduated high school, started college, and being homeschooled for my whole life, that was a culture shock. But we'll get into that later. When I was 19 years old, Episode 3 finally came out, and that's when I finally started connecting with fellow Star Wars fans over the internet. I found out I wasn't the only girl who adored Star Wars. The same year, I became an aunt. Our rent contract expired. We moved again. Mom had a whole bunch of health problems. We couldn't find anywhere to go with rent we could afford. So we ended up homeless for 6 weeks. For the first 2 weeks, we were house sitting for friends on vacation with all our stuff in storage. After they came back, we were able to stay 1 more week. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep our pets. At that point, we had 3 dogs, a cat, a rat, 2 fish, and a parakeet. We looked all over the internet for places to put them. Petco took my rat and fish, a co-worker of my dad's took his parakeet, and a no-kill shelter took the little Chihuahua mix. But then the deadline came, and there was nobody left to take our 11-year-old Shepherd mix and 6-year-old Pitbull mix. We couldn't even afford the surrender fee at that point, so we had to call animal control to take them away. We lived in a motel for a week and then found apartments to live in, but by then the reclaim deadline for the pets was gone and we couldn't afford to adopt our dogs back. They were gone forever. Thus began the darkest time in my life. The apartment we'd moved to was the worst neighborhood we'd ever lived in. There were drug deals, shouting, arguments, a couple of shootings down the street, vandalism, you name it, it was there. I fell into a very deep depression. I'd ended up rescuing a couple of dogs, but since I wasn't allowed to keep them, I thought about ending it. But the good news was I was able to connect with even more Star Wars friends. I met them and made my first costume and went on my first troop. The next year, I was able to save up enough money to go to Celebration 4 in Los Angeles. That was life-changing. I got approved by my very first Star Wars costuming club, the Jedi Assembly, a few months later. That I finally got my pet beagle. But that's when college took a dive. I'd been using my financial aid money to help my family out, and I flunked too many classes, so my financial aid was pulled and I had to leave college. The next year, I got my first steady job. I babysat 3 kids 3 days a week for 18 months until they moved away, and then I was unemployed again. The next year, I decided to go back to college and try and get a certificate. That's when I first started the Clumsy Jedi channel. Since then, life has had its ups and downs. I earned my certificate from college. My vlogs have focused on Star Wars for the last couple of years, and I started gaining a following. Last year, my parents got completely sick of California, couldn't really afford it anymore, so they sold the house and moved to Utah. I couldn't find a job or a room to rent in time, so I came along. The good news is I absolutely love living here. Everyone is so friendly, the cost of living is lower, it's absolutely beautiful. I don't really miss California at all, but I do miss everyone left behind. Someday I hope to visit them. Well, that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more like them, go ahead and click that little subscription button down below. Question of the day. If I was a cartoon character, which one do you think I'd be? Kind of a random question, but since I've been drawing cartoons, I think it fits. So until next time, this is the Clumsy Jedi signing off. Bye, guys.